So, good afternoon, evening, day, wherever you may be. Sorry I cannot be on camera right now. I am having an issue with my eye again, and it's my left eye. I think it's a lot of the irritants in the air, in the basement where I'm at, other stressors, and my eye is just like acting up really bad. So, tonight's discussion, I'm sorry this is so late too, and I'll explain that at the end. This is my God Has an App 4 series, and this one is on prioritizing your investments. I'll be reading from James chapter 4, verses 13 through 17. Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money. Why, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. So that's just one simple way that just says what is sinful and what is not. If you know you're supposed to do something good, but you don't do that for whatever reason, then that's sin, irregardless of what you believe. So, Dudley Rutherford starts out in his book with this. Leo Tolstoy is often remembered for his epic novel War and Peace. Few knew that he was a devout Christian and wrote a series of short stories concerning Christian values. In one story called How Much Land Does a Man Need?, he told about a landowner named Pahom. Now, this landowner was an honest man, not given to gambling or drinking, but he was also a proud man and boasted that he only needed one thing in the world to make him happy: land. He didn't necessarily need much, he just needed enough to provide food and sustenance for himself and his family. Pahom started out with a good stretch of land. Year after year passed, he continued to buy up the land of his neighbors until he became content. However, a foreigner came from afar and told Pahom about a distant country where the owners were selling thousands of acres of land at a bargain. It'd be easy, the foreigner assured him. All he would have to do is offer gifts to the natives, and they would return their favor by offering to sell him as much land he wished at a reasonable price. Pahom was intrigued and decided to see if it was true. It was just as the foreigner said, for Pahom and his servants happened upon a tent-dwelling people in possession of thousands of unused acres. He offered them gifts. The tent-dwellers were delighted to repay Pahom by selling him some of their land. He asked the chief how much the land would cost, and the chief replied, "Our price is always the same, 1,000 rubles a day." So Pahom didn't think that sounded right. The chief had stated there was one condition. Pahom could start at sunrise to mark out his land, but if he didn't return to his starting point by sundown, he would lose all his money. Because they were trying to determine how to measure the land. So basically what happens, he goes over a hill. Every so often, marking his territory, Pahom dug a hole with a spade and piled up turf. He went on for nearly 3 miles to the east, looked back. The people waited for him to return. Seemed like ants on the hill. At noon, the heat oppressed him. He stopped for lunch. The sun had gotten hot. So then he finished that, rested. He headed north to the second leg of his journey. Just when he thought about turning to the west, Pahom came to an especially damp piece of land. It'd be a shame to leave this piece of land out. So he continued further north. And then he's going more, digging another hole, marking the boundary, heading west. Now he's at the third leg of the trip. He could barely see the hill. Overcome with fatigue, he grew sleepy. Sun continued to burn. Water did little to quench his thirst. So then he gets to the final leg of the challenge, He starts to feel his knees give away as he jogged toward a hill. His feet were blistered, and the sweat cascaded down his face. A few hours' pain for a lifetime of pleasure, he thought. As the hill finally became visible on the horizon, he feared all was lost. He'd gone too far and had made it too difficult to get back. So on and on he runs, finally reached the foot of the hill. The sun disappeared. He had lost. But as he looked to the top of the hill, the people were still waving him, yelling for him to continue. They were at the top of the hill and higher than he was, so he could still see the sun. Paham dashed up the hill. The crowd burst into praise. What a fine fellow! He has gained much land. But when Paham's servants turned toward the master, they found Paham collapsed from the stress of the journey. When they checked on him, they realized he was dead. Wow. This is interesting. So, one of Paham's servants picks up the spade Paham used and dug a grave long enough for Paham to be buried in. The last line of Tolstoy's tale should convict us to the core, for it is a lesson in and of itself. 6 feet from his head to his heels was all he needed. How much land does a person need? Not much. Apparently just 6 feet. So maybe that's where they came up with the 6 feet under term. So basically how this applies to our lives would be this. On the first leg of our trip or our journey in life, we burst into the world with a youthful recklessness and high expectations. We're idealistic dreamers, aspiring for a happy and healthy life with a good amount of savings, working car. We don't necessarily ask for much, just enough to get by. On the second leg of our voyage, we begin to get a bit wiser with experience and understand that with a little ingenuity and economic finesse, we can turn a small savings account into a sizable retirement fund, healthy money market account, and maybe even grow a stock portfolio. We realize that the dreams we had as kids were not nearly large enough, or specific enough. Through hard work and some luck, we can make enough money to lead a comfortable life free from worry and live out the rest of our days in relative peace. By the time we reach the third leg of life's journey, hence I think I can relate to that one, we usually have had some kind of setback. Maybe our stocks plummeted, we got fired, we crashed our car and watched insurance skyrocket. There's always something that comes up, some unforeseen hiccup. And then we're forced to ask, what have I accomplished in my lifetime? Have I done anything that matters? The fourth leg is a mad dash to the finish. So I guess that's probably where I'd be at right now. From the outside, it won't look that way. It'll look like age, wrinkles, hospitals, and sickness. Well, okay, I'm not quite there. I'm in between. But behind the tired eyes of the elderly, you can see the end rapidly approaching. Life is short, but it's even shorter when you wasted most of it chasing after meaningless and unfulfilling desires. Some people welcome the end of the race. Others will attempt to barter for more time. When we finally pass away, everything we have accumulated will go to someone else, whether a loved one or not, such as the government or a charity. We will be forced to let go of possessions as we cross over from Earth to eternity. The only thing we take with us is the assurance we can't bring any material from this life into the next. Let's see. So we'll kind of skip over some of this other stuff that's really like crazy. So he writes, did you know that the median income for a working person over the age of 25 in America is about $32,000? Wow, I'm not even there. Not even close to 32,000. It says that he says that the world's average income is closer to 7,000. I suppose if you figure in every single country. Okay, he mentioned selling things on Craigslist. What else? Okay, so then he also says the rest of the chapter is for those of you who don't want to reflect back over your life and feel as if you wasted it. It's for those who want something better than simply making plans to acquire earthly treasure. James addresses this very topic when he says, today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money, etc., etc. The problem that James highlights is that people who make plans without understanding life's brevity, shortness, without submitting to God's sovereignty. Within this earnest text, God offers an app to anyone who feels like there's something more to life. There's something more than what we can see with our eyes and grasp with our hands. So, here's the steps to prioritizing your investments. Track your spending. That's pretty self-explanatory. So in this passage, James is not being disapproving of merchants. He's not saying that we should immediately quit our jobs in retail and sales. And I'm in retail. Of course not. James' problem with the believers goes much deeper. The believers' plans were completely bankrupt of anything remotely spiritual. They want to take a year to travel abroad and make money. What about the fact that there are people in the world who do not know the message of the gospel? What about those with no food to eat, those children who are wandering the streets homeless, those sick and in need of healing? And it's just like what Timothy says in 1 Timothy 6 verses 9 and 10. People who want to get rich fall into temptation and trap and into many foolish and harmful desires. So pursuing money is definitely a trap, according to Paul. So that means keeping a vigilant eye on your checkbook, pay attention to your budget, chart how you spend your time. I don't know anybody that does this one. Record your conversations and notice when you're engaged and you're disinterested. Step number 2, unearth the idols. That should be pretty straightforward. That's basically putting something other than God above, above what's really important. So it's basically getting rid of things that distract you from what your true purpose would be. Step number 3, remember the epitaph. That means to realize that every material thing in the world has a shelf life. Buildings erode, food spoils, stocks fluctuate, smartphones and laptop computers will crash, get hacked, or become outdated. So when a person brags about one's plans for their future, it's silly because a life in the pursuit of money is futile and fruitless, and it focuses on goods that only exist for a very short time when compared to what lasts for eternity. Step number 4, set the camera to panorama, as in looking at the full wide court instead of just a narrow little area. James was rebuking the merchants for their financial endeavors at the deepest level by exposing their selfishness because they were only thinking of themselves. He says that they should say, if it's the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. So James believes that the reason to pursue wealth is foolishness because we're part of something much bigger than ourselves. Step 5 is envision the invisible. He's got a story in here about a clockworker, kind of long. So like, for example, in 2 Corinthians 4 verse 18, it says, we believers fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. And step 6, invest in a better retirement community. Do not store yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy it and thieves break in and steal. That's from Matthew 6, verse 19 to 21. The final step to downloading God's app to reprioritize your investments is to look heavenward and know all of the frustrations you might endure as you attempt to love and serve others is being converted into a heavenly investment. You know, that actually really comforts me, because a lot of times I grumble when I'm doing really nice things for people that don't. There might be times where somebody doesn't really appreciate it, or they don't tell you, or you know, somebody is feeling taken advantage of, or someone's feeling like a slave, and instead of me grumbling about having to do certain things, you know, I should look at it as, well, we're all really supposed to serve each other. And, you know, whether somebody's struggling with physical needs, they need healing, they need a companion, they need assistance with something. I mean, instead of, you know, grumbling and saying, oh, what am I going to get out of this? You know, why doesn't this person pay me back, or whatever the case is? I need to look at it in a different light. I really think that we all need to do that, irregardless of what we believe. So that's basically the steps would be keeping track of your spending, realizing that any priority that trumps God's position in your life has become an idol. So that'd be like if you think, oh, traveling around the world is a better priority, or helping somebody in some other country is way more of a priority than helping your fellow people in your own state or country, or whatever the case is. Living so the words on your epitaph would inspire generations. Also, keep in mind you're part of a much grander story, and then learn to see the invisible qualities in this world, which help you refocus on matters of eternal significance. Dear friend, remember your investments on earth are temporary, but your investments in heaven are forever. And God's mission is to save the world, not to let it crumble and decay. Sorry this went on a little bit late. I do have a video coming out this week. I'm not sure what it will be. I can try to get one out next week. I have a really good idea for one. And we'll just have to see. And hopefully next week my eye will be a lot better.